welcome to Half the Battle. Well, we're back to the comic this week.
And we're taking a look at issue 28, Swampfire. And I should tell you before we start, the title has nothing whatsoever to do with the Swampfire toy. Even though that kinda would make sense. The cover is quite exciting. We've got a Cobra plane attacking a tank. It does what a cover is supposed to do, draw you towards the book, and it's not even lying about the content for once. The opening page depicts the Joes doing more of what they did last issue.
Run away! Run away! Run away!
Yes, they have successfully managed to heroically flee from Cobra and are heading back to the Joes' command ship. Time to let the other Joes get in on the action.
Translation, let somebody else deal with this mess.
Duke arrives on the Jane, that's the name of the ship by the way, and they plan an all-out attack on Cobra's hideout. Meanwhile, Zartan has seen them head out on that raft and assumes trouble is coming, so he gets the hell out of Dodge, leaving Cobra Commander stranded. Yeah, I'm not using the Monty Python gag here, since I actually expect this cowardly behavior from the bad guys. It would seem the commander is boned, but luckily, the Baroness was smart enough to divert some weaponry to Florida. 3 rattlers to be precise.
To change the subject completely, you know, we've been in Florida with this comic for a couple of issues now, and we've yet to see any real stereotypes. I'm happy to say the comic has got us covered.
We're introduced to a police chief and his deputy, who are waiting for a train to pass. Unfortunately for them, the train happens to be transporting the Mobat tank, and it happens to want to get off on that road. Hilarity ensues as the tank hits the police car. "That Yankee skunk done tore the side of our cruiser." "Sounded like a Tennessee boy to me, Sheriff." "That's north of here, ain't it?" This will be your comic relief for the issue. You know, I wouldn't mind so much, but they're clearly ripping off the comic relief sheriff from the James Bond movie Live and Let Die. I'll give them some credit though. They got it right when they mentioned Tennessee, as Breaker, the guy that spoke to them, is actually from there. Back on the Jane, they're deploying a new toy, I mean vehicle. We're introduced to the Whale hovercraft, and of course, the bloody thing is an acronym. It's Waterborne Hovercraft Assault Landing Experimental.
Or you could just say hovercraft.
With the Joes preparing their assault, Cobra are preparing their defense. And Wild Weasel, after being introduced, over 4 frickin' issues ago, finally gets to fly a Rattler. You know, the toy he was bloody sold with. It's about frickin' time. The Baroness flies off to Springfield, their secret headquarters, while Destro and Wild Weasel will try and pick up Cobra Commander. Speaking of which, the Great Leader and Firefly are in a bit of a pickle. The Joes are approaching over land, sea, and air, getting that little catchphrase shoehorned in, and all the controls in Zartan's cabin appear to be fake. Firefly rips off the panels and finds video game controls? What the hell? And they apparently control a whole army of robot Cobra soldiers and his tanks. And this was all Zartan stuff. When did he have time to set all this up? And why didn't he tell the commander about it? Also, where the hell did the money come from to build these things?
Screw it, let's just skip to the comic relief.
The sheriff is actually trying to pull over the big-ass tank. Everybody laugh. Other than that though, things are looking promising. I mean, we've got 3 Joe vehicles, and a police car I guess, on a ramming course with a Cobra army and 2 Rattlers. Not gonna lie, I think this is actually really cool. The confrontation begins with the Mobat and Sheriff Roscoe running into the robot army. Great jumpin' pollywogs! We done run into a nest of armed subversive anarchists!
At this point, I'm just happy he didn't use the word hootenanny.
Since we are talking about highly trained soldiers taking on remote-controlled primitive robots, the automatons get cut to pieces. Hell, even Sheriff Cletus manages to take out a few. Even so, there's just too many of them. Seriously, where did Sartan get all these bloody things from? So, they call in Duke and the Whale as reinforcements. On the way, the Whale goes past a house belonging to the couple from American Gothic? This got weird all of a sudden. Yeah, a robot army commanded by video game controls, that's nothing. But this I find weird.
I've been doing this too long, haven't I?
Meanwhile, the Baroness has arrived back in Springfield, and the first thing she does is head to the dungeons to see Major Blood, who the commander had thrown in there for screwing him over, if you'll remember. She offers to set him free, but for a price. Blood ominously asks who he has to kill. Finally, after 2 issues of slapstick horsing around, we're back to the intrigue that made Cobra such a pleasure to read about. Meanwhile, Destro and Wild Weasel have arrived at the battle, and zero in on the tank and, for some reason, the police cruiser. They take out the car, but Cletus and his deputy manage to get away. The Rattlers can't get a shot at the tank, since they use heat signatures to lock on, and the Joes have managed to cool off the engine enough. How convenient! It's at this point that the Whale finally shows up, and Deep Six is a good enough shot to damage Destro's plane. This doesn't take him out of the fight though, and he fires on the hovercraft, injuring Deep Six and several others, as well as damaging their guns. It's a very exciting scene.
It's a shame the panels are in the wrong order.
Here's what I mean by that. You first see Destro firing at the Whale. Then he contacts Wild Weasel, telling him he's gonna attack the hovercraft, so the pilot can go pick up Cobra Commander. And only after that do we see Deep Six getting hit. The first and second panel should be switched to make sense, and I think this was an intentional mistake, since panel 1 and 3 are too big to fit next to each other. They could have drawn arrows, you know. That would have solved it.
Anyway, with their guns damaged and everybody injured, it's time for...
If you smell what the Rock is cooking.
Oh yeah! With the Joes being sitting ducks and their only remaining gun unable to point upwards because of the damage, a Roadblock rips it out and carries it on his back so they can shoot at a Rattler. It's scenes like this that actually make me appreciate they picked a Rock to play him in the movie. And sure enough, they hit Destro right in the cockpit, forcing him to bail out as the plane explodes. But hey, check out his goddamn mask. It shrugs off the bullets as if they were nothing. What the hell is that thing made of? It's not all bad news for Cobra though, as Wild Weasel has located the commander and offers him a lift. Unfortunately for Firefly, there's only room for 1 passenger, so he'll have to fend for himself. He takes this well. By which I mean he blows up the cabin and swears revenge. He wanders through the swamp for a bit, all the time muttering about getting even with the commander, when he runs into Destro, who seems all too eager to give him the opportunity. Wow, you know, between this and the Baroness conspiring with blood...
Cobra Commander's future is so bright, he's gotta wear shades. Bulletproof shades, by the looks of it.
Speaking of vowing revenge, the comic ends with Sartan and the Dreadnoks taking to the road, determined to find out where the Joes came from. You guys, they came from Hasbro. Duh. And that was Swampfire.
How was it? Well, pretty good actually.
It was a much-needed change of tone from the very goofy first parts of the Swamp story. Comic relief sheriff notwithstanding. We've gone back to Cobra Command being a cabal of scheming, backstabbing badasses, instead of a group of bungling idiots. The story was fast-paced, with some nice little moments. For example, Roadblock is quick to praise Deep Six for taking out a Rattler, even if he literally did all the heavy lifting himself. It's a nice way to show how Deep Six is accepted by the team, despite having a form of autism.
The only things I didn't like were minor and were mostly just due to the cover and the title.
You've all seen a Rattler plane, right? It has a dark blue color. Yet, on the cover, it's a very, very light blue. Meaning, I didn't actually have a clue it was a Rattler on the damn cover until I read the issue. Similarly, with a title like Swampfire, I fully expected the toy called Swampfire to show up. But in hindsight, that was pretty stupid of me, since the toy is from 1986, and this issue was published in 1984. So I can't really fault the comic for not being able to predict the future. In conclusion, it's a fine conclusion to the Swamp story, especially since the previous issues were somewhat mediocre.
I highly recommend it. Well, see you next time, everybody.